come. Yes, we can.
Person, woman, man, camera, TV.
What the f*** is wrong with you?
Boom! There he is. Sorry about that. Hi, welcome to Wealth Franklin. I'm Chip Franklin here with you on this Friday. A lot going on. Keeping an eye on the market. We will after yesterday's, well, I guess the bad numbers that indicate maybe the Fed is actually affecting the economy. We'll get to that a little bit later on in the show. We'll try to figure out if you give somebody a Hanukkah or a Christmas gift, is that tax deductible? Yeah. And also, infectious disease specialist Rick Heller will join us on the latest on COVID and the flu and this RSV. And please tell me you got a shot, right? You got a flu shot? I mean, did we learn anything in the last 3 years? Of course, the big story today, and this is weirdly coincidental, is Elon Musk's bloodbath yesterday. It's been, it's like a Saturday night massacre. It reminds me a little bit of that old Richard Nixon Saturday night when he fired the special prosecutor in his investigation. This sort of has that same feel. We'll get to that coming up in just a second. But I don't know if you guys have been following this 30-year-old Bankman kid that, well, some people compared him to Bernie Madoff, which is not fair because I had friends that lost money to Bernie Madoff. But the real question is, the people that came along for the FTX, which is his cryptocurrency, he was kind of, in effect, a middleman, which cryptocurrency is not supposed to have. But famous people like Larry David and Tom Brady did commercials. And the question is now, do they have to really worry about anything coming forward, right?
Can I talk to you about something?
We talked about it. I got another 10 years left.
Not that. This is big. What do you think?
I'm in. Let's call everyone.
Hey, yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm in. I'm in.
I'm in.
I'm in.
This guy. First, even if you wanted to come back, we wouldn't take you.
Yes, you would.
Yeah, we would.
You're right, we would. What's up?
I'm getting into crypto. With FTX. You in?
I believe I'm in, but still hate you.
Understood.
Is he in?
Yep.
Did he say he hates you?
He did.
I get it.
All right. So joining me right now is former prosecutor, now criminal defense attorney, Randy Zellin, old friend of the show. I'm just looking at a couple articles here. One is on Squawk on CNBC. And they go through the whole thing explaining what cryptocurrency is to people. Good luck there. But there's on December 12th, FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried was charged with and arrested for violation of security laws. La da 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 da. The account holders feel like they were misled. Is there anything in that commercial that would get somebody in trouble? I mean, are these celebrities really in any kind of harm's way from civil or possibly even criminal?
Potentially, yes. First of all, I mean, Tom Brady really is, and they all are such good actors, which is a blessing, but in this instance could be a curse. He really should have taken the $37.5 million and gone into the broadcast booth instead of being 6 and 7 and no wife in Tampa, but that's another conversation for another time. But here's the reality of the situation. The Securities and Exchange Commission, the Federal Trade Commission, regulators, law enforcement, they will look at a celebrity. And the first thing they will be interested in saying is, so what was your motivation for saying I'm in?
Money.
I really hope.
They're hired to, couldn't you go right down the list?
Well, here's the thing. The law says you cannot go and tout a security without disclosing whether or not you're being compensated. So when you say I'm in, are you in because you really dig this security, or are you in because you're being paid to say you're in? And the investing public has a right to know whether or not Tom Brady is saying I'm in and you should be in, because he's being paid to say that and for no other reason. And that is a violation of securities law. It could be a violation of criminal law in terms of being a crime of fraud, of securities fraud. It potentially violates a whole host of laws. And we've seen other celebrities get jammed up. DJ Khaled, Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather. So what happens is law enforcement loves to do this to celebrities. Why?
Is this the
General
Treasury law
deterrence.
enforcement we're talking about, or FBI?
What's that?
Is this Treasury's law enforcement arm or the
This
FBI?
This is DOJ, so it could be the FBI. It certainly could be the Securities and Exchange Commission, who has their enforcement arm. That's not criminal, but they work together with the Department of Justice. So law enforcement regulators, they love to go after high-profile people. Why? Because it's general deterrence. It sends a message to Randy Zellin saying, oh, my God, if Tom Brady can get into trouble, I'm not doing this.
Okay. Is this a Dodd-Frank period, a piece of legislation, or how far back does this go?
Well, you're going back to, quite frankly, you have the 1933 Act, the 1934 Exchange Act, which all talk about anti-fraud. You've got anti-touting. And again, I don't want to get too deeply into the legalese, but the reality is, if I go on your show and I start saying, this is the greatest show ever, Chip Franklin is the greatest ever, you all have to tune in. You're all nuts if you don't tune in. It's one thing if I say it because that's how I feel. But if I'm being paid to say that, and now I'm misleading people because I'm being paid.
Hold on, Randy. That's the soul of advertising. When you see
it's the
somebody
soul of advertising, but securities work differently.
An investor, come on. Why do they work differently than Jack Daniels? So you got some celebrity going, oh, Jack Daniels, and some kid goes, wow, so I got to drink Jack Daniels because I love Joe Celebrity.
No, but securities work differently, because when I'm taking my rent money, when I'm taking my kids' college tuition, and I'm investing it in crypto, I have a right to know whether Tom Brady is telling me, hell, if he's in, I should be in. Is he saying that because he's done his homework? And now I should do it. But also remember something else. Is Tom Brady acting as an unregistered investment advisor, an unregistered broker dealer, an unregistered registered representative, and unlicensed? All of these things, you're talking about highly regulated industries. Why? Because when I take my rent money and I invest and I lose it all, and now I'm out in the street, the government's looking out for me.
But why doesn't the government protect people from other products with the same due diligence?
Well, that's a good question.
I can tell you. I'm going to tell you the answer.
Well, the answer is, quite frankly, again, when you're talking about investing,
you're talking about protecting rich white people, is what you're talking about.
Well, it's not only rich white people, it's rich and poor people of any color who get led down a primrose path. And not everybody invests with Bernie Madoff. People who would invest with Randy Zellin, who's a shyster. The securities markets are highly regulated for a reason, because we don't want people in homeless shelters after they invested all of their money on some crap that was a pump and dump or a Ponzi scheme.
For those who don't know, a pump and dump is when a person pretends to love a product and gets the price up through advertising or through a show like this, maybe. And then as soon as it reaches a point, they sell their stake. And they basically got the price up by telling everybody it was good. People trusted them. I mean, but again, this is at the heart of advertising. And I think that's the point I wanted to get to here that really gets me. And, looking forward. So to answer let's go back to the first question. Are they in trouble? And how long does something like this go? How long before we know?
It all depends on, first of all, and primarily, whether or not they've been compensated. And if they've been compensated, has that compensation been disclosed? So if you check off the box, yes, it's been disclosed, that goes a long way. But still, particularly with FBX, you're talking about, the guy took a $1 billion loan. We are talking about so much money having disappeared so quickly, and the Steph Currys and the Tom Brady's of the world, they're heroes. They're idolized. So yes, is Randy Zellin going to be saying, "Oh my God, Brady and Curry invested"? Honey, call the bank. We're loading up on FTX.
Yeah. All right. Last question. So I stupidly, I did not include the Larry David ad in my bit. In the Larry David ad, he doesn't believe in cryptocurrency. The whole time he's going, nah, I don't believe it. Nah, you know, Larry, right? So can you make a case saying that, you know, he was never in?
I mean, you could, but then if you look at Larry David's sense of humor,
Yeah. Okay.
and it's all always flipping it on its head. It's sometimes hard to tell between reality and sarcasm.
What does that? What will happen if they do charge Brady not with a criminal offense? Right, it'd be a civil offense. Probably he'd be fined. Right, most probably.
Well, you're talking about the potential fines, disgorgement of anything that you got, legal fees,
Yeah.
for sure, penalties. I mean,
Wow.
it's really
Okay.
it's terrible because again, it really was such a great ad. And to see and listen, Sam
Well, and then, you know,
Bankman-Fried.
Matt Damon was plugging another cryptocurrency, not the FTX stuff. So he's okay, right? He's safe.
Yeah, I mean, Bankman-Fried is presumed innocent, and you know me, white collar criminal defense guy. I truly believe in that, but it's not
Okay.
looking good.
All right. The Elon Musk saga, and I got to ask you about this. It was reported that Aaron Rupar, who has about close to 1 million followers, and we're going to be joined by some folks who have high numbers in a few minutes as well. Couple big parts of this story. Rupar said, "I didn't post anything remotely controversial today or anytime recently, nor anything that violated the rules as I understand them." And people, I mean, it's on the front page of every newspaper today. Newspaper, listen to me. On every, it's everywhere. Here's a little bit of it for the people that just tuned in.
This was New York Times technology reporter Ryan Mack's last tweet before his Twitter account got suddenly and mysteriously suspended tonight. Quote, "Me setting up my Mastodon account," referring to a new Twitter competitor. And then a meme of Simpsons character Ralph Wiggum saying, "I'm in danger." Now, the joke here is that this New York Times reporter knew the odds were good that his account might be suspended, not because anyone told him it would be, not because he did anything wrong, but because he fit tonight's pattern. Tonight, Twitter suspended the accounts of more than half a dozen journalists from CNN, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and other outlets. The suspensions came without warning or explanation, but many...
I want to get into this. I want to bring in a couple of friends of mine. Brian Karam, White House correspondent, author of, look at him, author of Free the Press, which is in its 4th printing. Congratulations, as always. And then Jojo from Jurors, a good friend and influencer on Twitter as well. Randy Zellin, attorney here. Guys, I don't know if you heard about this. There's a woman whose name is, so why did I have this open? I had her account. I was on Twitter last night and I saw a group chat and it had like 3,300 people in it. And the person that hosting it was a BuzzFeed reporter. And who showed up in the chat but Elon Musk? And so, did you guys hear about this? No, it's not fake because I checked his voice.
I didn't say it was fake.
Okay, let's listen up a little bit. This is Musk saying, he uses a word I never heard before called doxing. But this is, I won't play this whole thing, but I want you to hear just a little bit of this. Listen up.
In the last few hours with a handful of journalists being banned.
Well, as I'm sure everyone who's been doxed would agree, showing real-time information about somebody's location is inappropriate, and I think everyone on this call would not like that to be done to them. And there's not going to be any distinction in the future between journalists, so-called journalists, and regular people. Everyone's going to be treated the same. You're not special because you're a journalist. You're a Twitter. You're a citizen. So no special treatment. You dox, you get suspended. End of story.
Okay, so he stayed on this for a while. Musk did, and I was just on there. I just happened to come on, and I'm listening to some of the people, and one of the guys that was suspended from, I think, the Washington Post. But as of this morning, I noticed that Scarborough, who was suspended, is back on, but Rupar's not back. I guess the real question is, and we can all jump in here right now. Is Musk protected under the legal axiom, even assholes have rights? Is that kind of it?
Of course.
He's protected so many different ways. He's protected statutorily because when we're talking about internet service providers or people who just put content out which is created by other people, you have absolute immunity. Otherwise, imagine everybody, Yahoo and the message boards and the chat rooms and the Twitters, if every time somebody put something out there that was nasty, ugly, defamatory, call it whatever you want, now you go after the deep pocket. So the law says, and it's section 230, if we want to get into the weeds, that Twitter is absolutely immune. If I post something on Twitter, they can't edit it, they can't play with it, they can't do anything other than say, oh, thank you for your content. Here, it's on. Immune from liability. First Amendment, freedom of speech, and infringing on the freedom of speech only applies to the government. You would actually have to say Twitter is an arm of the government to be able to make a First Amendment claim against Twitter for shutting you down.
All right. So JoJo is a great writer, and she tweets really well, and it's part of her livelihood now, and it's a big part of her livelihood. Am I right, Joe? Well, you got to turn your mic back on there, kiddo. There it is. Okay. Am I right?
I keep hearing Elon.
Oh, is he still playing there somewhere?
I hear him.
Do you guys still hear Elon?
Thankfully, no, I don't hear Elon. Thankfully, I don't want to hear Elon. Please, no more.
Ever again. I'll get to you, Mr. Free the Press, in a second here. Hang on.
Well, you're going to get suspended now for saying that.
Yeah, well, right now, this is broadcasting on Twitter, so who knows? So, but let me ask you this, Joe. So, obviously, has that entered your mind? Because you don't really hold back on your tweets, which I love.
Unfortunately, it's constantly on my mind, which is terrible.
Yeah.
Because it shouldn't be. It wasn't before. I never thought about that. You know what I mean? I didn't worry about any of that.
So does Elon, if he kicks her off arbitrarily, that affects her career, her livelihood. Is that actionable, Randy? Does he have the right to do that?
First of all, again, this is a private company. The terms of service specifically say I can kick you out for any reason or no reason at all. And then, as I said, Section 230, you have the immunity, First Amendment. Again, I mean, Chip, you could shut my mic down right now. Isn't that technically infringing upon my freedom of speech if you don't like what I'm saying? You could kill my mic. I can't sue you for violating my First Amendment rights.
So let's go to a guy whose mouth has constantly got him in trouble over the years, and actually to the point where the White House took his press pass away at one point, which is defensible. I mean, I guess, right?
Well,
but anyway,
I won 3 times in court, so I guess it was defensible. So screw it.
So you were surprised by what happened by this bloodbath, weren't you, Brian?
Yeah, I was a little surprised, and then again, I wasn't. I mean, I was surprised it was Aaron. I was surprised it was Washington Post reporters, but I'm not surprised that Elon took that stance, and I don't really care. I'm just going to say what I think, and if he wants to kick me off, screw him. I don't really give a damn. Yeah. The bottom line is, look, man, it's not a violation of the First Amendment. It's a violation of the ideals of free speech. But you're free to do that. They're 2 assholes arguing. One guy owns the company, another guy disagrees with him. He can do whatever in the hell he wants. Unless the government has a stake in it, as Randy was saying, there's absolutely nothing that can be done. And there's nothing that should be done. The idea that we have to be, I think Elon Musk has the wrong idea of what free speech is. And I think he makes excuses when people say stuff he doesn't like. But that makes him, I don't know, the same as Donald Trump without the curse of having him served as president. So I've seen his type before. They're replete throughout our history. Yeah. They're morons. They're poltroons. They're people who claim that they know everything and know nothing. They have money but haven't the idea how to wipe their own bottoms. So, I really don't care a damn what Elon Musk thinks or says. I'll say what I'll say, and
sure,
it's my big fat flaccid ass.
But I go back to Joe, and I think about her and others, and also a lot of these think tanks, and also these super PACs that are out there. So if a super PAC is out there, like Midas Touch, Really American, and dozens of others, and they're raising money for political debate and for awareness, again, all falls under the umbrella of this is my country, this is my business. If you don't like it, go somewhere else. Randy, does that thing go forever? Is there any end to that?
In terms of what, Chip? I want to make sure I understand.
Let's go back to Joe. All right. So, Joe, when you sometimes put a tweet out that says, does it ever ask you, you sure you want to say that kind of
All the
thing?
time.
Yeah. And I get that too, right? And actually, I kind of like that.
They love me.
Well, I get that algorithm occasionally that asks me that, and I appreciate it sometimes because I'm really pissed when I'm about to send a DM or a tweet out to someone that has, again, this is the issue, and this true. There may be people breaking federal laws out there of intimidation and threats, and I don't know, is this libel or slander? What would that be, Randy, if you're typing it on Twitter?
Well, if you're writing something, it would be libel. If you're saying something, it would be slander.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, so we lost Joe, but I mean, I think of Joe and I think about these. There she is. I think about the people that have used this platform along the way, and you're saying essentially that they are on their own, pretty much, right? That they can be tossed anytime.
Oh yeah. I mean, the thing is, I think a lot of us are now in fear all the time. It doesn't change anything that I tweet. My content is still my content. In fact, I'll tweet about Elon all day long. He claims that that's okay, but that the line was his family, his location.
Yeah.
But it's just, there's so much hypocrisy that it's insane. But I mean, if you read the Onion piece about just please like me, it kind of like sums him up, like he's doing all of this when he's supposedly the second richest man in the world, and he should be busy doing other things. But instead, this is where he's getting his rocks off right now. And he's very much seeing everything, all the content that's out there with his name attached to it. I know personally from friends of mine who've had their accounts shut down for offending him. It's a perpetual concern of mine. I just learned very recently that there's a ghost ban on my account, which a lot of Brooklyn Dad too has.
What's
the ghost ban? I had to look it up. It's basically a shadow ban. It looks like your account is running totally normally, but you're getting suppressed in the algorithm, so it's not being shown.
Oh, I know that works for me. I see with my videos, and I also know that. But again, back to Randy, this all falls under the umbrella. I can do whatever I want under certain. I mean, like as an editor, and that's what they are. I mean, I know that Brian. Look at Brian. But I get it, dude. But like not every you're published, and you put a book out, and a million people can read it. For a lot of people, this marketplace is where people are trying to do what you're doing, and they have a guy who is, I don't know if he's mentally ill or what, but he is.
I think we got to look at it differently. I don't think we live in fear of him canceling us. Go ahead, cancel us, throw us in that briar patch.
Someone should start a Twitter for everyone who's been kicked off.
Yes,
Twitter.
Well, they're doing it.
But there's an interesting legal argument that someone at some point is going to advance, and it's this: Elon Musk talks so much that one of the things he's been talking a lot about, and people have been talking a lot about, is that before he came on, that Twitter was in bed with the left, was in bed with the Democrats, and was suppressing all kinds of ugly stuff, for example, about Hunter Biden. So Elon Musk ought to be really careful, because somebody will be able to argue, something? You just got done saying that Twitter's in bed with the government. That makes Twitter an arm of the government. And now the First Amendment does apply.
Wow.
Well, just to pick up on that.
Especially if there was a fiduciary type of or an economic relationship between the government, and if you could prove that, then boy, you'd really have them. But
well, they were back with PayPal. Remember with the PayPal and the relationship they were getting? Yeah, I mean, it does happen. But look, the truth is, before Musk, what was happening is there was disinformation from groups, whether it was about the election or it was about COVID, or again, straight out lies, and they wanted to put pictures of Hunter Biden's penis that came off his laptop somehow. And obviously the Biden administration didn't want that. I mean, and the truth is, I guess, I don't even know where all those laws stand right now, Randy, but I do know that we all have the same feeling that the wrong guy's in charge. And you're right.
Listen, fundamentally, the problem is there's no longer anything objective. I mean, disinformation. is that even an
That's the
objective
goal.
concept anymore? Because if so many people believe it, is it disinformation, or is the other side now the ones guilty of operating in a world of disinformation? That's the scariest part.
No,
Well,
but
Elon
the scariest
was
part is
asked.
take that one
Hang on, Brian. Hang on, Brian. What, Joe?
Elon was asked on Twitter by a Twitter user, with so much free speech out there now, how do I decipher what's true? And Elon's answer was, you decide. You decide what's true. And that's what he's doing. He's essentially saying that facts are something that we can decide on our own, that there's no such thing as a fundamental truth or an actual fact. That's terribly dangerous.
All right, first of all, you gotta separate those two words, facts and truth. All right, if you want truth, that's 2 doors down, see the philosophy professor. Facts are vetted facts, and you can determine your truth. But what Randy's talking about, how we end up in chaos, how we end up with authoritarianism, how we end up with despots, is when there is no agreement on what facts are.
Okay, but Brian,
what these people are doing are allowing you to create your own facts and therefore make your own reality.
Right, but Brian, you and I both know I can nuance any fact you give me right now, and I can turn it into something else. A great example would be a vaccine. I can tell you that vaccines don't save anyone's lives. And the truth is, they don't. What happens is your body, the vaccine goes into your body gets more prepared for when you're attacked by a virus, and then you can do it.
Nuance whatever the hell you want.
I'm just saying.
The facts are simple. The sun rises in the east. The facts are the man landed on the moon. The facts is, that we're not, the QAnon.
Where does the sun rise if I'm on the shuttle?
I'm telling you, you have to accept some facts to argue with.
I do. I agree.
Or if you don't, then it's done.
And to both of your point, once upon a time, when we talk about separating fact from truth, you would accept a fact. You might not agree with it. So it might not be your truth, but you're cool with it. Now, there's no more separation anymore.
Exactly.
Fact and truth become one and the same. So who do you believe? Once upon a time, when Ronald Reagan took, for example, the podium and spoke, even if you didn't necessarily agree with him, you took what he was saying as true. You believed in your government leaders. You may not always agree with them, but you didn't think that they were out to get you. You didn't think that one side was out to get the other. There were instances where we could all be okay and we would trust what was being said. Again, even if we didn't agree with it. That no longer exists. There are people who will say the world is flat, and people are actually going to say, oh, well, if he's saying it, well, I'm on board. I promise you, if Donald Trump took the stage in his Superman outfit tonight and decided, you know what, I am proclaiming as Super Trump, the world is flat.
Yeah.
A portion of his base is going to buy in that and try to walk all the way across the world and say, see, I didn't fall off.
It's funny you mentioned that because, of course, Trump got into, is it NFTs? Yeah. When that thing had cratered. And then he claims today that they were sold out. Hey, can we leave on a funny note here real quick? Right? I think it's funny.
Hello, everyone. This is Donald Trump. Hopefully your favorite president of all time, better than Lincoln, better than Washington.
That person was president of the United States.
With an important announcement to make.
Trump promised a big announcement. I thought he was going to say something like Marjorie Taylor Greene is my running mate.
Very excited about that.
Or Melania had escaped. But instead, he reverted to his real grift origins.
Trump digital trading cards.
While waiting to be indicted by at least 4 different prosecutors or grand juries, Trump is trying to sell digital baseball cards of himself.
Digital trading cards are $99. Buy one and you will join a very exclusive community.
I swear, it's so god-awful embarrassing, I almost feel bad for him.
They also make perfect gifts.
Trump never wanted to be president. It was always just another con.
I'm also doing Zoom calls, a one-on-one meeting, autographing memorabilia.
Autographs, a night at Mar-a-Lago, a top-secret document, all for sale. The art of the deal was Trump's calling card, but it might be time to write a new ending.
Goddamn right.
Sexy time. Who's with me?
Winning.
Yes!
Can I just say I love Borat? I swear to God, I can watch that guy 24/7 and still laugh. I sometimes think
Donald Trump for 4 years and laughed.
All right. So obviously, nobody knows where this is going. But it's obviously, at least in the opinion of Randy, it's not headed towards a courtroom anytime soon.
No, here's what it's headed towards. It's decentralization of the message. It will chase some people away. Some will stay. Some will be on multiple platforms. The influence of Twitter will fade as other different platforms rise. The marketplace will out. And if capitalism teaches us anything, it's that somebody's going to make some money doing something contrary to him. So it's all part and parcel. Look, Elon Musk got into this, Chip, because he saw Jeff Bezos. He wanted to own a media company. He thought this was the new media company, so he bought into it. Should Twitter and other platforms be regulated? That's a topic to be taken up by Congress, which will never decide on anything, or a blue ribbon commission by the President of the United States to determine whether or not these are de facto media conglomerates and groups. Otherwise, Randy's absolutely right. Forget it. There's nothing you can do, and the market will out, and there'll be somebody else who put out another platform that they'll love, and everyone will flock to that, or this guy will back off, and it'll go back to being what it was.
Well, let me just recommend that you guys check out JoJo from Jurors on Twitter. Great stuff there. And
I love her stuff on Twitter.
Yes, we really do. It really makes me laugh all the time. Thank you so much, Joe, for being here.
Thanks, guys.
And
Thank
Brian,
you.
I love your crankiness. I know it's not even
I
morning.
haven't even had me morning coffee.
And Randy, your insight, always welcome, my friend. Thank you, guys. All right, be well.
Good weekend, all.
Bye.
Bye.
See you guys. Yeah, have a great weekend, everybody. All right, so obviously, if you're not on Twitter, and a lot of people aren't, or my wife got into Twitter in 2016 and loves it and drives her crazy because obviously, they track what you like. Probably not as good as some other platforms, but they're getting better. And now we have to, of course, figure out, again, for people, as I mentioned, like with JoJo, I mean, single mom, and she's making a living now doing this, and she's very good. And she has a Patreon account. And I look at that and I think, what Musk is doing is it's a game when it's a lot of people, others' lives and livelihoods. All right. I just saw this the other day that flipped me out. With the latest on COVID, and just trying to, that apparently corpses may spread COVID. I just saw that. I really, you want to make this any worse. So the latest, we're just trying to figure out, again, with COVID and flu cases on the rise, where are we with all this, and that's a good question.
We turn now to the rise in flu and COVID cases across the country. Officials in New York City and Los Angeles County once again urging people to wear masks indoors. And in California's Alameda County, face coverings are now required in some settings. This as the number of people hospitalized with the flu remains at its highest level in more than a decade. Here's ABC's Rena Roy.
Tonight, COVID mask policies making a comeback. Face coverings now required in high-risk indoor settings like shelters and jails in Alameda County, California, which includes Oakland, and strongly recommended in Los Angeles County and New York City. Experts concerned with COVID cases and flu-like illnesses roughly 1.5 times higher than last week.
I absolutely understand people's reluctance about masks, particularly in children. But if you actually want to keep kids in school and you want to make sure that schools are staffed, it turns out that masks are actually, especially during a surge like this, one of the best ways we can keep kids healthy.
All that illness.
Okay, now I say that, okay, and because we understand about masks. Of course, masks and vaccines, that's a big part of where we are right now. But I just want to show you a tweet from, again, I have to do it, but it's Marjorie Taylor Greene. Tweeted this last week. So many people still wearing masks. I just want to ask you, if a pair of underwear, really thick ones, high quality cotton, can't protect you from a fart, then how will a mask protect you from COVID? That's an elected representative of our country. So I don't know. Joining us right now is infectious disease specialist Rick Heller. Rick, was all of this predictable that that COVID, such a contagious virus, would come back this strong?
Is it predictable? Yeah, it's predictable, and it was predicted, and it's predicted that we're just in the low numbers right now as compared to last year. We're about the same, and now we're going up to maybe 10 times as much as last year in LA, 15 times from where we are today.
Obviously, vaccinations help. I still wear a mask when I go into a grocery store. I still wear a mask. I mean, I haven't been I've been inside a restaurant maybe 3 times in the past 3 years. But I wear a mask when I go pretty much anywhere. Like I went to Costco yesterday and I wore a mask, and I think there were like 15 of us and all that Christmas shopping and everywhere. And I felt uncomfortable, to be honest with you. So I guess the question is, moving forward, this deadly trio of RSV, flu, and COVID. Is this trifecta? I mean, is this really? Are we looking at 2020 kind of numbers? No way, right?
I hope not. Well, your 2021 numbers were the worst.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, right.
And that was in light of the fact that already vaccines had been rolling out. Now we're heavily vaccinated as compared to last year. And yet, we're still running at 60-70% rates. So I think that we're going to just re-enter what we had last year. It's not a happy prediction, but it is the case. We see it with flu all the time. But there is a model to look at this through, and it all has to come back to atmosphere, because it comes in the winter. There's a lot to that, but then it comes down to our lungs, which is biophysical, and then it gets down to or a little bit in the middle is HVAC. So our heating, ventilation, air conditioning is actually just recirculating the atmospheric moisture. Now, I won't give you too many numbers, but I do have to say one thing with regard to that. And that's that the moisture you can tell not from relative humidity, for example. Right now, I'm going to give you a few numbers. Relative humidity, San Francisco, LA, Dallas, Guadalajara is a very interesting one. These are all high relative humidity. It turns out the Guadalajara, not so much. But this thing called the dew point, which you can get on any, it's not interesting to most people, but it is if you're a tennis player or runner. You want to get out there under 70-degree dew point. Doesn't matter what the temperature is. Maybe the radiation matters. But when you get into those lower dew points, you just feel great. The sweat evaporates and all that. But when you exhale and you are sick, that virus, and even bacteria similarly, that virus is going to be what we call live virus. And usually in high humidity environments, it's dead on arrival on exhale. So these masks are actually protecting us from people who are sick or might be sick.
And so conversely, people that wear the masks are protecting other people as well.
Yeah, and that's something to do with asymptomatic spread. But we see it mostly, the largest amount of spread comes from people who are symptomatic, should know it, probably know it, and go out in public for, a variety of reasons.
Okay, I want to play you this little piece from ABC, and this really bothers me. And it bothered me before the pandemic, and it has to do with, the flu vaccine in general.
What we need to do is make sure that you're planning your holiday around your most vulnerable, newborns, elderly, immunocompromised, and make sure that we're protecting those vulnerable populations by wearing a mask, by staying home if you're sick. If you've been exposed to flu or RSV or COVID, stay home. As Ann said, test for COVID, ensure you have good ventilation. And we do have vaccines. We have the vaccine against flu that's a good match, and we have those COVID boosters that are so essential right now.
But John, can I ask you about that? Because our whole family got the flu shot, and we all got the flu. So I'm struggling with the whole flu shot thing.
Oh, that kills me, Rick. All right. This is how people's brains work, right? I last year I didn't get a flu shot and I didn't get the flu. That means I don't need a flu shot to not get the flu. And of course, you know, it's just it's bad reasoning. But to have an ABC anchor come out and say that and not really, and the guy comes back on to say, hey, it doesn't work everywhere. A flu shot doesn't mean you're not going to get the flu. It will reduce the severity should you get exposed. You must see this all the time. It's got to drive you crazy. But I mean, this is Rick Keller, our guest here, Dr. Rick Keller. I appreciate it. But this is right. I mean, this is hard to have this discussion with people when they reason like that.
Yeah, it's just it's a problem of very small numbers. You know, even in the worst of COVID, we were at 0.25%, maybe 0.5%, which was overall the population at a given moment in time. So, you know, we're not going to necessarily get it. In fact, the numbers are against us to get it. But I will tell you the coincidence, and I take great care, my wife takes great care of herself and people around her. And she came home from Las Vegas with diagnosed flu A, and that was just 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago. Within 3 days, I had COVID. I can't explain it. This is just a single data point. 4 days later, my mother had COVID. I wasn't even around her. So I mean, there's nothing you can surmise from that, but it's alive and it's circulating.
My wife got COVID the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. I was in bed with her that Monday night, and she's coughing and thinking she's getting the flu because we never go anywhere, Rick. Okay. I mean, we see a same group of people and we generally see them. I live in San Diego, so we go to the beach and have a fire. We're all separated from each other. Only a couple people in that group. Now, everybody in that group has had the flu except me and one other spouse. And I was with my wife that whole time. She was in the house. She still can't fully taste or smell. And her back has been bothering her. So she got a little bit of the long COVID, but it's beginning to come back. And I've heard people say it could take up to a month or so to get your taste and smell back, maybe longer. But I guess there's so much we don't understand about this virus. And I mean, there's a possible chance that I did get exposed and I just didn't have any symptoms, right?
Yeah. That's correct, but it's unlikely that you spread, and certainly that you spread in large numbers. Only 10% of the people infected are spreading 90% of the disease. And this is the same with flu, and it's not unusual. So it has to do with a thing called presenteeism, which is the opposite of absenteeism. But there is a salvo to this. Besides masking, masking really helps if you are sick and you don't know it, or you just, for whatever reason, you got to go out in public. The masking knocks down about 95% of the virus. In the case of somebody who's well, you put on the mask, you get about a 10 or 20% benefit. And that's worth it. But the final thing is that all of this discussion about humidity, which is exactly what goes on in the winter, the Northern Hemisphere, our summer, our winter, what the bottom line is to drink water. And 64 ounces of water. Absolutely. And that's what hydrates your lungs. Your lungs have an immune system, and they're actually sort of the outside of your skin. They're actually skin inverted. And if you hydrate, you allow that immune system to work. And that's where it's entering. It's entering through a number of places in your body, but it's almost all respiratory. And that's why we get the respiratory, and that's why we spread it.
64 ounces. What is that, like 7 or 8 glasses of water, something like that?
Yeah. And it's hard to imagine. You get used to it. I just put a little grapefruit juice in all my water, and I buy cans of, mildly, flavored water.
Well, I think that, when you talked about the mask, and I still hear people that just don't buy into it. And it's got to be frustrating for a physician, as well as for an infectious disease specialist. I mean, when people say that we don't need masks, I go, well, next time you have to get surgery done, tell your doctor not to wear a mask, but that's, of course, whatever. All right. The name of your company is welloinc.com. Right?
Hello, Wello. Yes. Wello.
Rick, I really appreciate it. It's always good to see you again. Yeah, stay well, my friend. Okay.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you again. Infectious disease specialist, Rick Keller. You just heard it, right? I mean, that's where we are. And the problem, of course, moving forward with, the preponderance of ignorance. When I showed you that Marjorie Taylor Greene tweet that, if thick underwear can't stop a fart, I mean, these are the people that want to bring Fauci before them. And of course, it's frustrating, I think, for me, in that, I've been fortunate to have this radio show. I've been doing talk radio since 1993, right? So I've gone through a lot of different things, over the years. I mean, the very first thing I remember in Washington, D.C. was the O.J. Simpson case, because I went on the air and there was no internet per se. There was no cable TV really. So we just grabbed newspapers and people would call in. And it's funny, I thought about this. I wrote a book about talk radio that I never published, but, part of this is to me fascinating that we cannot get this kind of information to people, despite the opportunities we have with the internet, that we have with just so many so many people like the people you've heard before. Rick Heller, I'm just kind of stuttering here because I'm trying to get another guest on. We just had a bit of a problem. But I do believe, though, that there is something here for all of us. I'm going to get to your emails here in just a second. By the way, if you'd like to be part of this, you can just log on anytime. I would also ask you to please subscribe to our channel at What the Franklin or at Chip Franklin. And we will, of course, we'll keep doing this as long as you keep watching. We post these everywhere as well. All right. Let me get to some of your comments here while I wait for a guest. This is interesting. Russ says, one guy I know had COVID, didn't realize it, hopped on a plane to go to a wedding, and now a bunch of people at the wedding have it. But I wonder about that. I wonder, Russ, when we look at cases like that, we don't have the ability to track COVID like that. Anyway, so we'll get to this. Laurie has one too as well. Severe flu can damage a heart, so decreasing severity is still useful. And that's the point here. That's the whole. Thank you so much, Laurie. The point about these vaccines, and again, I've had the fortune the last 4 years to speak to everybody from Dr. Fauci to leading virologists and epidemiologists, and they all come at me with the same result. Do everything you can to prepare your body for this possible infection. That's what it's all about. One more here before I get to our next guest. Laurie says, doesn't have to be water. Fluids is high moisture fruit. The whole thing about having to do HDO is a fallacy. Hydration is key. Can coffee hydrate me? Because that's my go-to. All right. So a friend of mine was telling me the other day, he goes, Hanukkah's coming up, and I'm going to buy all these clients gifts for Hanukkah, and it's deductible. And I said, are you a tax attorney? And he goes, no, but I'm sure it's deductible. I'm really is. And of course, at the end of the year, everybody's trying to figure out their taxes for the next year. And I think this guy is looking at this as a real possibility. So why not bring in somebody that knows? And that would be tax attorney extraordinaire, Steve Moskowitz from MoskowitzLLP.com. Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much, Chip. And like so many times for do-it-yourselfers, they may get part of it right. Business gifts are deductible up to the princely sum of $25 a year.
Really?
Yeah.
So, wow.
So if you give somebody a business gift that cost you $100, you don't get to deduct $100. You only get to deduct $25.
So in other words, and that is that just one gift? What if I gave him so each gift is only
$25,000 per person per year.
$25, not grand.
I'm sorry, $25.
You may give people $25 grand.
Not $25,000, $25. So if you give a business client a $100 gift a month, your total deduction for the years is $25. Therein lies the problem.
Wow.
So smarter thing is, if you want the deduction, why don't you take them out to a nice Christmas dinner, and at least you get a bigger deduction than $25.
Right, you get the whole thing right now. That changed, didn't it? Didn't it used to be that you could not? Well, you tell me, because I remember
that's going back and forth for COVID to try to help out the restaurants. And Congress has done a lot for the restaurants. Like they had RRF. We've talked about PPP and ERC so much.
A lot.
But there was also RRF, Restaurant Revitalization Fund, where the Congress has just given the money away. That's why this year I think there's going to be some tremendous tax increases because, first of all, we have enforcement with these new 87,000 IRS agents the IRS is hiring. And then, the government's spending a lot of money, whether it's on all these government programs for COVID. Tremendous money's been sent out. We talk about ERC all the time. Well, somebody has to pay for it. Who is that? That's us, the taxpayers. Not to mention what's being spent in Ukraine, not to mention everything else, all these other programs. So there's a tremendous burden. It's not an accident or coincidental. They happen to want to hire these extra 87,000 IRS agents.
One of the other things I wanted to ask you is, and I think a lot of people are thinking this right now, Steve. We got a couple weeks left before the end of the year. If I realize I might need a few more tax deductions and I want to make a purchase, for example, I want to purchase a computer, but their stock is way behind. Can I pay for it now, even though it's going to be delivered like in February?
Yes, you can. And that's typical classic tax planning where you say, okay, here it is. It's December 16th. I got a couple of weeks to hurry up and spend some money, because if you buy that new computer today, you get a tax deduction on your 2022 tax return. If you go ahead and buy it January 2nd, you have to wait an extra year. And then also we have things like with depreciation, most of those things we can write the entire amount off because of Section 179 and bonus depreciation, as opposed to depreciating it over a period of time. And that's true for much larger purchases too.
One last question, because this came up earlier. We had one of our guests on who's on Twitter, and she makes most of her living on Patreon. So people give money to her to support her for her work on Twitter. If somebody were to give that money to someone that, and I mean, like say, for example, I want to give her like $50. Does that gift thing still apply? Is that considered a gift in Patreon when you're helping somebody with cash as opposed to actual buying them something?
The definition of a gift is something with disinterested generosity. So if you have a gift, you're limited to that. On the other hand, if you're paying for something, that's a different story. So if you're paying for a service, if it's a business service, if it's tax deductible, you can deduct it an unlimited amount.
See, look, that's why we have you here, my friend. MoskowitzLLP.com is the website. And that's, of course, Steve Moskowitz, who joins us quite frequently to help us answer these difficult questions, especially now when we're looking at the end of a year. Of course, pensions, that's a whole nother thing. We'll talk about that next time. How about that?
That's a tremendous savings, people. I love talking about that.
All right, buddy. Take care. See you guys.
Thanks so much.
Again, Steve Moskowitz, Moskowitz LLP, who sponsors this show as well. But, I can honestly say that the 7 years I've known him have been beneficial in more than just a friendship. He's just a really, really smart guy and can help you out in many ways. All right. Great. By the way, I love the internet. I mentioned earlier about how I drink so much coffee and I should drink more water. And of course, everybody jumped right in here. The coffee and tea can hydrate, but hydration effect is lessened because caffeine is a diuretic source, makes you pee it out faster. She goes, I miss Dina Dell. Thank you so much. You know what? I think of Dina Dell. I think of my good friend, Heather Hammond, who was my producer for a while. And of course, a good friend as well as Nikki. Did she work for Dina Dell? Is that who she worked for?
She was the producer. Yeah. For Dr. Dina Dell. And, yeah, I think they had some sort of reunion. And I think that he showed up. Yeah, he did, because our old engineer, Karen, had the hugest crush on him. She loved Dr. Dina Dell. Yeah. So she got a picture with him. I mean, she had this ass-eating grin on her face. It was awesome. So, yeah.
So we had a fun first half hour talking about Musk and what happened yesterday. And I got to tell you this story, and I apologize to people that were here earlier that saw it. So last night, I just was on Twitter because I was looking for some guests to come on in this first segment to talk about, his banning these journalists, which made, front page news, big deal. However, it was interesting. I saw there was one live Twitter Spaces, and I don't really pay attention, but there were like 4,500 people in it. And I thought, oh, this must be interesting. And it was by a journalist for BuzzFeed, and who else but was in that was Elon Musk was in there, defending his decision to get rid of these people, saying that they were doing a thing called doxing him. You ever heard of that before?
Yeah, doxing. Yeah, that's when you find out somebody's address, and that's when he had the whole problem with the Elon Jet Twitter handle that he banned, even though it shouldn't be. We're going to touch on it a little bit. But yeah, doxing is terrible. I mean, you got doxxed, Chip. When somebody shows up and leaves that you don't know and leaves messages at your house and
Yeah.
lets you know that they know where they live, that's doxing someone. And not only that, spreading it on the internet so other people join in. And it's frightening, but that's the internet nowadays. And you put too much of your information online, people will know where you are.
Oh, they can find it.
Yeah.
Everything's findable. I mean,
Exactly.
and that's the scary part about, what the web is right now. I mean, you can go and
Absolutely.
pay somebody $20 and get somebody's address and all.
Less than that, basically. I mean, you could do it yourself. It's scary, but at the same time, you hope that there's more good people than bad people out there. So
Yeah, and I mean, if Twitter went away, I'd be sad. I enjoyed. I made a lot of good friends.
it's not the same Twitter now. So it's like a slow breakup. That's what I feel like. I like Twitter too. I've made a lot of connections with people I've never met before, but only on that platform. But right now, Twitter isn't what it used to be. And so I don't know. I don't know how long it is going to last, but we'll see. I don't know how long I'm going
Well,
to
it's
stay on
funny.
it.
I mean, I've over the last 3 years, I mean, I made a ton of friends. People I never would have, Jane Lynch, Rosie O'Donnell. Although I did do a show with Rosie O'Donnell on Stand Up Spotlight, where she was the MC, and I was trying. She couldn't remember it, and then I told her one of the jokes, and she remembered it, which is nice.
There you go.
But I mean, these are some of the guests we have coming up, and people like I've known like Wanda Sykes since the early
Right.
80s, and Patton Oswalt and all these people that started out at my comedy clubs, right? And we
Right.
all kind of reconnected on Twitter, and and I would have never had any conversations with Joe Walsh, the former congressman. Brooklyn Dad is now a good friend of mine.
Right.
I do work for some super PACs. Really American is a great super PAC that I do a lot of work for. So I mean, I will miss it, not so much because of free speech and the First Amendment and all that. I just it is a coarser version of Facebook. Let's be honest.
Well, yeah, it's the platform, the stream, how people interact is different, and I do like it. And speaking of Brooklyn Dad, by the way, I actually was interacting with him and a bunch of his followers. Did you know he has never, and for the first time, saw My Cousin Vinny for the first time last week? That's one of my favorite movies. I was like,
Yeah.
what? But that was a
Utes.
What's a Ute? Oh my God. It was so funny. But I bring that up because it was amazing how many people were, quoting the movie and getting back to him. And I will miss that about Twitter. Is it worth it? Is it worth everything else that we have to deal with on the platform? I'm not quite sure.
What's the lead actress's name? She won the Academy Award.
Marissa Tomei,
Marissa
who
Tomei.
totally deserved it. I got into a back and forth with the guy, was like, really? An Oscar for that role? I'm like, what do you need to win an Oscar? An iconic movie that's quoted all the time. I mean, I use lines from that movie in my real life that she has said. I
Well,
mean, it is an amazing movie.
As a stand-up comic, and I've been doing stand-up since 1980, and I'm fucking amazing. And sorry.
To say it lightly. There we go.
No, I mean, I've written for everybody from Steve Allen to Jay Leno and blah blah blah, and I've done stand-up forever. So, but it's a craft, right? It wasn't like I was born funny, although
funny looking, but
yeah,
you
right.
got to work on the funny part.
But one of the things I've always said about an actor is, if you think you're a great actor, show me you can do comedy.
Oh yeah.
You know,
mean, it's so much
anybody
harder.
Anybody can look in the camera and go,
well,
but,
yeah, you could have a war movie. You could do one of these bits, but make people laugh and have that movie stand the test of time. That's an old movie. And every time it is on, I watch that movie. I love My Cousin Vinny.
Marissa Tomei comes to mind because she was in The Big Short, and she played Baum's wife, remember? And talking to him when he, remember?
I've only seen that movie once. I've only seen that movie once.
Well, she was Steve Carell's wife. And
okay.
And remember, his brother had killed himself, and she was trying to console him. It was a small role, but a very great dramatic role.
Amazing.
On the
She
flip
is
side,
amazing.
Robert De Niro in Midnight Run with Charles Grodin is hilarious. Much better than Meet the Fockers and all that sort of stuff. This was a real, and I look at people like that, and I think to myself, Will Ferrell is, if you go back and watch the movie he did with Emma Thompson, Stranger Than Fiction, where he played.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
I mean, he's incredibly capable of that. It's funny, that he hosts a golf tournament in San Diego for a charity. I can't remember, and I was in it. And there's a prize for getting closest to the hole, right, on a par 3, and I got about 6 inches away from a hole in one, and so I got a cowbell that he autographed. So he, afterwards, there's a dinner, so he gives me the cowbell, and I got talking about people we know in common. And I asked him about Stranger in Fiction, and he said, you know what? People say I had a great performance. Emma Thompson walked me through every scene I did with her. And he goes, I was almost in every scene with her to some extent.
Wow.
And he goes, she was so amazing. And she's funnier than I am. And she just doesn't want to do a comedy, but she's hilarious. So it is, really great. We go back. The reason I don't know, how would we get into this thing about My Cousin Benny? Oh, Brooklyn Dad.
Brooklyn Dad, hadn't watched it yet. Yeah.
All right, we'll got to get out of here. So so what do you got coming up today? Your show starts at 12.
It's going to be light. It's a Friday show. We'll talk movies. I'm going to interview someone from Cal Matters about this tragic story of this kid who spent 19 years old, spent years in prison, never went to trial. They just released him and they never explained what happened in our juvenile system and how basically broken it is. That'll come up. Tim Sika's talking movies. I don't know. I got a bunch
Has he
of stuff
seen
coming up.
Avatar? Do you know? Has he seen
Well,
it
that's
yet?
what I'm going to talk to him about. Definitely. I mean, yeah, I put on adult diapers to watch that movie, but
Oh, what is it? 5 hours or something?
3 hours long, man. And I've been trained to stream my movies. I need
I
to
thought you were going to say your urine. I've been taking.
No, but I might see it, but I don't know. I haven't watched the original Avatar in a long time. I'd have to rewatch it.
I didn't like
feel
it. I mean, it didn't blow me
It was
away.
okay. It was
Yeah.
another long James Cameron. It was James Cameron did the last one
Cameron,
too.
yeah, Cameron, yeah.
Ugh,
You realize
so we'll
that odds are that he will have the top 3 grossing films of all time after this.
Whatever. I mean, he's kind of a douchebag.
The guy knows how to tap into people, and
and
again,
make long movies, basically.
all right. Well,
Very
yeah,
long
be
movies.
beforehand is the Nikki Maduro advice.
Yes,
Have a
exactly.
great weekend, my friend.
You
Okay.
too. I'll see you later.
Talk.
Bye,
All right,
Chip.
see you too. Bye-bye. Again, Nikki Maduro show kicks off on YouTube at noon, and I watch it as much as I can, or at least listening to it when I'm in the car. You can actually listen to YouTube, this show, when you're driving in your car as well. All right. My goal as we go through the holidays is to get some of the celebrities I've been promising to come on and talk, essentially a political, cultural show. But we do have some fun. And next week, we're going to start again with our top 10 list. It's just been kind of crazy as we get through the holidays. I won't be doing a show on Christmas Day. Well, it is the day after. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I'm sure you'll get through your day if I don't do a show. All right. Anyway, send me an email, chip@chipfranklin.com. Please tell your friends about this and get them to subscribe, because it makes a big difference as we try to grow and try to get more people to see us and join us on a regular basis. And, in the days and weeks ahead, I think, all of us, that I'd say Nikki and I and others that are doing YouTube TV, getting this on direct TV, bouncing it around. It all starts with you guys. So we really do appreciate your time. You have a great weekend. And remember, you can buy me a Christmas gift and only deduct $25. But hey, what the heck?
I can handle things. I'm smart.
We shall overcome. Yes, we can.
Person, woman, man, camera, TV. What the f*** is wrong with you?